residential tech talk, lighting specialist to residential tech.
Welcome to Residential Tech Talks. I'm Jeremy Glowacki, Executive Editor of Residential Tech Today. On this week's podcast, Josh Willits joins us from Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, where he is COO of Portal, the proposal software and product pricing database for integrators. Although you've seen him wearing the Portal orange pants at trade shows going on 11 years now, Josh's career has also included a tenure in the custom integration trade, as well as several years with a well-respected Crestron programming company. You may even remember his COVID-era side hustle as a gentleman coffee roaster. Today, we'll touch on a bit of that career arc, but mostly we'll focus on Portal's latest innovation, the AI Proposal Builder. This tool promises AV and security dealers the ability to create complete project proposals in just seconds, transforming often tedious work into making it easier for integrators to sell projects and get paid. Josh Willits, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Yep, thanks for having me, Jeremy. It's good to finally be here with you.
Yeah, sorry it took so long. You know, our focus editorial, as I've talked to you in the past, I try to veer away from the inside trade business types sort of coverage to mostly tech and focus on products. But, you know, as we've evolved, I've kind of reintegrated some of these important elements in terms of running your business and the software that Portal creates for proposals, and feel like, you know, this is all very important information for integrators to have and products to be able to use to be more efficient. So that's why you're here, and I'm excited about this new product. And I definitely wanted to just sort of start off talking about your career arc, because you've hit on a couple of cool places, and people may forget because you've just been known for the orange pants for so many years now.
Yep.
So let's start with where you find the most relevant part to start with in terms of your background. And, you know, as a kid, were you kind of into putting things together? Were you a music kid? What kind of do you think got you toward this industry at first?
Yeah, I definitely, that's a great question. I definitely was sort of a geek as a kid and definitely liked to tinker. I used to ride my bike to Radio Shack and buy the little toroidal motors with batteries and wires, and I had constructs and I'd build little cars. I remember I got sick of getting up from my bed and turning off the light, so I created my own like pulley system that I could flip a switch and turn my light off late at night. So like I was always like into sort of tech like that, and that sort of pushed me to electrical engineering in college. So my degree's in electrical engineering, so I went technical pretty early. Yeah.
Wow, that's a big one, man. That's some bona fides, as they say, you know. And you talk about tech, not messing around with electrical engineering.
Yeah.
So then,
no, it was.
What,
yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, then where did that take you out of college? Did you actually go into that field at first?
I did. Yeah. I took my my EIT, and which is the first step towards professional engineer. And then I worked for a commercial MEP firm here in the Harrisburg area. So I really liked the telecom and low voltage side of electrical engineering. And that company that I found had a team that just focused on telecom and security. So I did, for a couple years, I did engineering on their telecom division. So I did some pretty cool projects like Philadelphia Museum of Art. We did a security upgrade for, and I got to walk all the catwalks and see all the behind the scenes over there. And just a lot of really cool projects. I sort of really liked the AV and security side of it for sure. So that started that interest in that, moving in that direction.
And then how did you find out about custom integration as a career path and end up in that part of the business?
Yeah, for me at the commercial MEP firm, it was a larger firm. There was 250 or so people. It was very corporate. And I just sort of pushed back on that. And after about 2 years, I just was ready for something different. It wasn't really challenging anymore. I remember We had a draftsman department, people who did all the CAD work for the engineers, but I just became friends with IT people and got a secret license. So I was doing all my own CAD, and I just got to the point where it didn't feel like I was going to go anywhere from there. And I was ready to move. So I was really interested in, like I said, the AV and the security side. So I met a local integrator at a wine show. They had brought a mobile theater to a wine show. And so I met them there, started talking with them, had a couple mutual connections, and they were growing pretty fast. This was in 2004.
Okay.
And there was 5 or 6 people at the company, and they were growing, and they didn't really have any back-end systems, and they didn't have any really operational help. And so that's what they needed. So I went there as the general manager to basically run operations for them as 2 years out of college with no experience running a company.
That's
but they brought me
crazy.
on, and my first week was I just followed people around with a notebook and just wrote down everything they did and took notes and just observed and learned.
That's
And
cool.
then
Okay.
and then got my hands dirty and focused on operations at a small company, small integrator like that, though. Like, you tended to wear all the hats. So I ended up learning sales. I did operations. We did a full NetSuite implementation and automation of workflows in the business workflows. So I did a lot of really interesting things for 4 years, and then 2008 hit, and I kind of had hit my limit there as well. So that's when I looked to move on from that.
Yeah, when you told me when you started there, I'm like, I see what's coming on the horizon.
Yeah, that's right.
That's not great. You hear these mile markers with our industry, with the economy, and
towards the end there were some interesting things happening with us, but I think we were just like a little bit too early. There was 2 things that sort of stand out to me. Number one is we opened up a sister store, which I ended up running for about a year, which was packaged home theater. So when customers came in, we designed that experience when they walk in the door. It wasn't really about the product. It was about the systems, the package, and it was all home theater. Through that, we ended up getting connected to Zobo TV, which was Jay Fazen's company down in North Carolina. And Jay had just started Snap as well. So we were paying attention to them because they were right beside a tweeter, and they were doing these packaged systems. And so I remember the owner and I drove down to meet with Jay to check out Zobo, and he was like, "Oh, I got this other cool thing I'm doing. Come check it out." He took us to like the first warehouse that he had spun up for Snap, and they were doing like these old cabinet cinema walls. I don't know if you remember those, and the plasma pop-up furniture. So like wooden furniture that had plasma pop-ups. This was like he was excited because he was just hiring Adam. And he was like, "We're getting speakers in. Like, this is a secret, but I'm really excited. We're going to start getting into speakers." And so that was, so those are sort of, that's kind of around when I left that integrator, sort of all that was happening in the market in 2008. Yeah.
Yeah. In case people want to know, World Premiere was the name of the integration company, right?
Yep.
That was,
Yep. Ken Bosley's the owner. Yep. And I still keep in pretty close touch with Ken. I was just over to their new facility recently, so still local, still doing business. Yep.
Well, that's good to hear. You know, I don't know them particularly, but it's good when you hear that a company is still going strong after, you moved on from it.
They've had great longevity without me, but that's good. I'm happy for Ken.
Well, maybe you had something to do with it at the beginning there. So, and then, I mentioned the Crestron programming, and I remember Jetson Systems pretty well from back in that era. How did that happen to come about for you? You didn't mention necessarily Crestron programming when you were describing your role there and at World Premiere, but
we did not use Jetson, but we definitely were Crestron company. We were doing most of our programming in-house. And when I left there, I took some time to sort of think about what I wanted to do. And I've always made kind of a concerted effort to make just connect with other people in the industry. And we had been going to CEDIAs, and I had gotten my one of the first EIT certifications. So I was traveling around Pennsylvania and educating architects before I left World Premiere. And so just making connections into the industry, I guess I was around, 28 at the time, and had a connection at Jetson from, I don't remember exactly where, but had a connection there, and I touched base with them, and they were looking for a designer, and basically their operations manager, their general manager was leaving. So that was the opportunity for me. Now they were based on the West Coast. So I telecommuted. So I've been telecommuting from home since 2008, really. Um, and so
So have I,
we
by
did
the
some
way. I
work.
think that was about the time when I started it. So I moved from New
Yeah.
York to Indiana. So
And my
yeah,
oldest was born that year, which I think one of your daughters was born around the same time.
yep,
So so it was a similar stage in life going remote.
right.
But
But it's
yeah, we
interesting.
had
That was a moment in time. I felt like when it was like it was only like the prior couple of years maybe into then where you could do that like really well. Like it was
pretty early. Like we were on
yeah.
Skype to stay in
Mm,
touch with Slack. Obviously didn't exist at the time.
yeah.
But we were able to make it work. And I had some projects on the East Coast that we did. We did the Comcast headquarters, and I did some work with some residential integrators down in Virginia and Eastern Pennsylvania. But most of our work was West Coast. So I was
Mm,
telecommunicating. We had a team of programmers, and I was doing system design, and then I would do QC and manage the
mm.
projects. So
Okay. And that was a 6-year stint there. So lengthy period of time with Jetson.
yeah, there was some shifts and sort of changes in what the company looked like. Jetson was independent, a Crestron Cape, but we also did
mm,
some Savant when Savant first started allowing outsourced programming, and some AMX as well. And then we were actually acquired by Engineered Environment. So I worked with
mm.
Randy Stearns really closely. I ran that business unit for maybe a little bit over a year. Still called Jetson Systems because we were still outsourcing to integrators, but we were doing all of their in-house work as well. And this was pretty much, I think, around, at the height of Engineered Environments and well before VIA and all of that.
Yeah.
And so I was telecommuting, running that business unit. And then it ended up after a couple months that our biggest customer was a private equity group that was based, it was an American, but based in the UK. And we were building racks and shipping them to job sites across the US and even some in the UK and Europe. And they ended up acquiring Jetson Systems. So the name then shifted over, and we became essentially their in-house design and IT firm. And so then I worked with local AV integrators at each location. We would interview and find AV integrators. They would source a certain percentage of all the products that we needed, which we standardized across all the locations. And then we would bring our team in to do, Cisco networks, Cisco
Mm.
VoIP, and obviously Crestron, and then we standardized Crestron at all the properties. Everything was interconnected. So I did that for a couple years before I came to Portal.
Now, I'd forgotten a little bit about in your timeline about InvenShare. I'm saying
That's
that
right,
right?
InvenShare. Yes, yes.
Now, is that the link that brought you to Portal? Doing
It
that?
is. Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
right. I know
Yeah.
I should
So.
know all about your life. I try to keep up, and I remembered it as I saw it. I'm like, wait a second, there was a weird little moment there where you're doing your own thing, and
Yeah. Yeah.
remind us what InvenShare is.
I was at Jetson,
Okay.
and I actually went to one of the very first Savant trainings on programming and configuration at the factory. And I think it was the last night I went to dinner with, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 other integrators. And we were just sitting around and talking about, the business. And and life. And one of the integrators had an AMX touch panel that he had donated to a Ronald McDonald House to use, and he had configured it and everything maybe 2 years ago. And something happened where they were upgrading or they went in a different direction. He was getting this panel back and he was like, man, I don't know what to do with this panel. I'd love to get some money for it, but I'm not going to put it in a project. And one of the other guys at the table said, I'll buy it for $2,000. And that's when we were like, there really should be some sort of platform for integrators, because most vendor agreements prohibit them from moving stuff on eBay.
Oh, yeah.
And so, because they don't want, especially AMX, Crestron, you don't want that to go directly in the hands of consumers. You want it, through an authorized reseller.
Sure.
And so I contacted a buddy of mine that was a developer and spec'd out this system. And it was purely just, I saw an opportunity in the industry to help integrators. And I thought it was a cool idea. And I built InvenShare and launched it. And it was essentially a web platform. It's like a private eBay. So you had to have a login to get in and see what was there, but it allowed integrators to list their excess and unwanted inventory that other dealers could see, and then they could buy, sell, and even trade inventory. So, I had a customer for one integrator, their kid dropped a Crestron remote control and broke it. And to upgrade, they had to completely reprogram the system, right? But if they had a replacement device, it was an older discontinued model. If they could just find that same product new from another integrator, then it would be a much better solution for the customer. And so I had a lot of stories like that where we were doing it. I ended up getting programs with all the major buying groups for InvenShare. And I was going to all the buying group shows, and then I had manufacturers coming to me and saying, hey, we've got a bunch of B stock. We just discontinued this whole line, but we can't, obviously we can't sell it online. We don't want to. Can you list it for your integrators? That wasn't really the business we were in, but I saw that opportunity was growing.
Okay.
And I had met Kirk it was Supply Stream at the time before we renamed it to Portal.
Right.
And I had met them at their first CEDIA that they exhibited. And so there was sort of a small core team that had launched it in beta at that CEDIA. I went up, I got the demo, I talked to Kirk. And then it was it was that spring. So it was maybe 6 months later. I called him and just to sort of connect. And we talked about the industry, and we talked about Supply Stream. We talked about InvenShare, and we just were aligned on where we saw things going long term, what the opportunities looked like for software and for helping drive dealer process. And ended up connecting in person in Vegas on the heels of another buying group show in the spring buying group season. And for 24 hours, we just put our heads together and realized that we could do something great together. And so he offered to acquire InvenShare and bring me on board, and we would launch Portal officially that next CEDIA out of beta and build the proposal tool. And yeah, that's like the quick story, I guess. Or maybe
that's a great link to it. And obviously we're going to get to the new product and talk about that, but kind of set the stage for the evolution of what Portal has done for proposal software, the art of proposals for the industry. And I mean, where it started, and then how it's evolved, and how you've tried to differentiate yourself, from the competition out there, because it's not the only one doing this, obviously, in the industry.
Yeah, so Portal existed before we even had the ability to create proposals, and that's because it was really started as a way to aggregate product information into a central database that's available on the web for dealers. And this came out of, I'll leave the Kirk interview for another podcast, but if you talk to Kirk, when he was an integrator, he built his own software to run the entire company. They were based in Chicago. And 2008 hit. They ended up converting over to a custom shop from more of a retail driven shop. And he ended up selling it to his employees, but took the software with him. He shared it with a bunch of integrators. They all said, I run my business different than this, but this part's cool and this other part's cool. But the one thing everybody agreed on was it was all web-based and they all had access to this central catalog. So one integrator would add the latest Speakercraft speaker price list and product information, and then it would be there for everybody. And so he realized how much cost savings there could be when you think about the fact that every integrator is in their own systems. So that could be QuickBooks, it could be, QuoteWorks for quotes or whatever they were using separately for quotes. And they would have to keep up with that product information. So somebody on their staff was entering that information, keeping up with latest price sheets. And I remember when I was at World Premiere, we had an entire bookcase full of printed PDFs and binders for every supplier and manufacturer where you'd have to go to look up pricing. And so Portal really was launched as Supply Stream to digitize all of that and put it in a central web-based catalog so dealers could search a product, find pricing, and place orders. So that's what we built first. That's what we launched in beta with. And the other useful thing that, or the other use case for having managed product data is so you don't have to update your proposal tool, which I just mentioned. So it was pretty clear to us early on that the next piece of functionality that we wanted to build on the site for dealers, in addition to ordering, was the proposal tool. So we launched that back in 2014, I think, CEDIA. And we started out very simple. It was, you can search the catalog for your product because that's sort of the core of what we do. And then you can just add it to a proposal. And we did some cool things and we were the first to do them, and dealers really loved them. They still love it. Like one of the things was when you'd submit a proposal to a customer, we gave the dealer notifications when the customer was looking at it. And so that was like, dealers loved it. It was this tiny feature that we were like, this is a good idea. Everybody should know when your customer's looking at it. Everybody wants to know, when do I call the customer? When do I follow up? So we built that in, and there were just sort of small decisions like that, but they were all based around the user experience and design. We were former integrators. We knew sort of what we wanted and what our customers wanted. And where we really separated ourselves early on was by constantly iterating and listening to customers. And the second thing was customer service. Most software tools, especially back then, charged for support, and it wasn't necessarily live support. And so we were also one of the first companies to be cloud-based. So we were on the web pretty much before especially any industry tools. And then we built a live chat. And from pretty much day one, our average response time to dealer questions on our in-app chat was less than a minute. And so we just built a team that was just relentlessly focused on customer experience and working directly with dealers and just being available for dealers. And so we kind of reap the benefits of that every year when the industry awards come out and we get customer service awards. It's just always been something that we've made very important for the company. So those are some of the things that separated us out really early. I think the one thing that stayed, obviously I just said the customer support has stayed really important for us. But the other piece is focusing on what we do best, which ended up becoming proposals. It was the part that dealers just loved about Portal, and focusing on that user experience. So we actually think of ourselves more as a design company than even like a software company. And so when we build new features, we don't just add buttons. Like, we think very deeply about what the dealer needs, the problem that we're solving, and we work that into, we look at the workflow in their business, and then we work it into our tool in a way that's like super, super intuitive and easy to use and discoverable. Because we don't we made the decision not to build features that would require that we show everybody how to use everything. So we onboard dealers now. Most dealers just onboard themselves. They can get up and running. They're building a proposal, sending it out, and getting it accepted in 30 minutes. And so we went to ISC West this year, and a dealer came by the booth. He was like, I've never heard of you guys. He signed up for an account. Later that night, he went back to his hotel room, built a quote, came by in the morning and was like, dude, I built a quote. I haven't talked to anybody yet. I sent it off to the customer. And on the show floor, then within 15 minutes, he had it accepted. He got the accepted notification. And that really sort of encapsulates how we look at that process for dealers. We want them to get up and running using the tool as quickly as possible.
That's really a great way to explain it. Now, your role has evolved throughout the years. Are those just fun little title changes over the years? Or, VP of Dealer Happiness is where you started, which I love that.
Every 2 years, we require title changes every 2 years. So every 2 years, Kirk and I sit down. No, I'm kidding.
I actually thought you were serious. It's almost like my wife. My wife works for a major pharmaceutical company, which will remain unnamed here. That they really that's their corporate mandate, is to kind of move people around so they don't get too passive or whatever in their roles. And so
no, I mean, look, we're a small company. When I started, my job was to work with dealers and make them happy. So, dealer happiness made sense. As I grew that team, that team is still called Dealer Happiness.
Okay.
But there were other parts of the company. Basically, what I've always done at Portal is I solve a problem. I build a team around that sort of business unit. And then I identify the next biggest problem that needs to be solved. And so, we did that on the dealer side, and then we built the support component. And then we saw an opportunity to have a better working relationship with vendors and provide services to vendors. So I then focused on building that out, built that team up. And then that's sort of always what I've done. So most of those title changes sort of followed what my focus was until I ended up running marketing and dealer happiness, which is our dealer facing side, and the vendor side, and realized that, I'm really focused on all of these operational components of the company. And that's when it made sense to do the operations focus on the COO title. So
there you go. Okay.
I mean, titles, look, we're not really about titles. It's just about getting in and doing the work. But that's the evolution of it.
Okay. So now you reached out to me, I guess, post CEDIA, was it, when we talked and you gave me a little demo?
I think it was like the week
right
prior, because we hadn't really told anybody what we were doing. But
that's right.
I had a bunch of calls with press just to say, people that I knew, just say, hey, here's what's happening. We're launching it next week on the show floor.
So where obviously AI is a part of the name, and AI is part of the solution here. And you hear a lot about AI, and sometimes it's marketing hype, sometimes it's real. This is a real use of AI to make a process more efficient and easier to do. So walk us through when you had kind of the light bulb of, I think I figured out a better way to do what we've been doing really well already, but just make it even faster and easier for the dealer to do this.
Yeah, it's funny because we sort of talk about ourselves as the easy to use, fast proposals. We always have been sort of the quickest way to build proposals and get them out the door. One of the very early ideas that Kirk and I have been talking about for, pretty much for 10 years, as long as I've been at Portal, is this idea that at some point dealers should be able to walk through a house, talk in relatively generic terms, like, I want a TV here, maybe the size, or a size range, surround sound system in this room, zone of audio in the kitchen, a zone of audio over here. And that technology would be able to build that proposal based on products that it knows the dealer sells and installs on a regular basis. So this is something that we've called sort of a lot of different things over the years, but it started off at client walkthrough mode and client walkthrough. That's been something we've been talking about as sort of the end goal, the holy grail for 10 years as part of our proposal tool. We don't really talk to other people about that because that was kind of our vision for the company and where we could go.
Sure.
So probably back in March, I mean, really before that, with AI coming on board, we knew that we needed to pay attention to what was happening. And the tools that could be available to us through, this shift with OpenAI and Gemini and Llama and all these other technologies, or I guess LLMs specifically. And so we were talking about what this could look like, but still, once you commit to it, then you still have to find the tech and build the tech and allocate the technical resources and actually make it happen. So the vision was there, but the tech was still a little bit unknown until probably, I want to say March-ish. We realized that we could probably do this AI tool to actually build proposals with the technology that's available on the market at the time. So we brought in a couple consultants, and we played around with some AI stuff in historically, but we brought in a couple really solid technical partners, and our technical team stepped up to the plate and did amazing work. And we started speccing this out around the March timeframe on what we could do and what we thought could work. And we were doing things like, we were playing around with these LLMs and just seeing how much they could do just for fun. And we realized that they were incredibly accurate in some of these prompts that we were sending in related to projects and products and what integrators do and understanding that. And so I think that leading up to that time when we said, look, we're going to shift our development resources, because every time you take on a project or you add a feature, you're delaying another feature. I mean, we've got 2 years of pipeline and roadmap planned. So anytime we take one feature, it has to be the most important feature at the time and have the most value for dealers. And dealers weren't asking for AI. And most people are sort of like, it's a flash, technology that is going to help us long term, but doesn't really help me now.
Right.
So we had to fight against that a little bit. But we knew that based on what we were seeing on these LLMs and some of these tests we were running, that it really seemed like it might be time to leverage these technologies to do something pretty amazing. And so we got started in, I think it was late March, early April, with the design of here's how we think it could work. And then we built it out over the summer and we didn't tell anybody. So nobody really knew that we were working on this project, but we were and we were also working on other things. So we're an agile development team. So we're working in, 1 to 2 week sprints. We're releasing features. New features are on Portal every 2 weeks. So it's constantly being updated.
Wow.
That was still happening, but in the background, we were doing all this work to build this tool. And so leading up to CEDIA, we got, version 1, version 2. These are like pre-beta alpha versions that are available. We started calling up dealers and having conversations with the dealers about this new thing that we were developing. And when we showed them, it seemed like everybody reacted with, first of all, like, holy crap, this is unbelievable. And second of all, this is like a complete game changer for our business and for the industry. And so we leaned pretty heavily on that for our marketing around CEDIA, with this idea that this is a game changer because it genuinely changes how dealers can what that proposal process can look like for integrators.
Right.
And we kind of have done this, I would say, a few times over the years. The first time we did it was incorporating payments into the acceptance process of proposals. So there's a lot of friction that happens once a dealer gets a signed proposal from a customer. So this is like after they've built the proposal, after they've sent it out, they collect signature. A couple of years ago, we realized that there's too much friction in the process of collecting that deposit payment once the customer signs and accepts the proposal. If you're the customer, you're thinking, like you're excited, you sign the proposal, you approve it, like you're excited, you're about to spend, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on this project. Yeah. And then it's like, what's next? I assume I have to pay, but I guess I'll wait and hear back from my guy to figure out how I pay. And then the dealer, puts it into QuickBooks, creates an invoice the next day or 2 days later or whatever. And then they send it to the customer, but customer left on a business trip, or maybe they're not available during the day. So then they got to wait and they got to chase them for the deposit payment. And then the customer's like, when are we going to get this done? When are we going to get started? And the integrator's like, I don't have the money yet. Yeah. Right. So we were like identifying that opportunity. We said, okay, what if we take that piece of the payment side and put it as part of the digital signature when the customer accepts the proposal? And so we built that a couple years ago, and it's just this like identifying this kind of friction that exists that's always been accepted in the industry, and said, let's get rid of all of this friction and put it where the customer is expecting it, which is in the process of accepting the proposal.
Right.
And so I liken that to kind of how we ended up doing AI, which was normally the process for building a proposal is dealer gets a call from a potential customer. They talk to them on the phone and pre-qualify them, make sure it's a legitimate lead. And then typically for most integrators, they end up going to the job site, or they get a set of plans, but let's focus on like they go out to the job site, they meet with the customer, they walk through and they document everything. And usually that means like writing it down on a notepad and taking as many notes as they can. But then to build that proposal, they've got to take all that information back, hope they documented everything, hope they don't forget everything by the time they actually sit down to build a proposal at their computer at work or at home, which is usually like maybe that night at the earliest, or the next day, or a couple of days later. Mm-hmm. And so they're missing details, they're missing information, not intentionally, but just because that's just the nature of how you collect that information on the job site. And that process of building the proposal, of putting in all the room names, of searching all the products and adding the products, even though we were faster than competitors at allowing dealers to do that, there's still a lot of friction in this process that we realized that we can really eliminate all of that. If we go to the place where that information exists first, which is the walkthrough.
Yeah.
So that's what we did with the AI proposal builder. So the way we built it was, look, most dealers are doing a project discovery and defining that scope of work with the customer before they ever touch the proposal. So let's give them multiple ways to enter that information. And that information also lends itself to an LLM, right? Because LLM can take a transcript from a video where you're describing the system, or a spec that's pre-written by maybe a designer or an architect on like the technology scope for the project. It doesn't matter the format, as long as you can put it into the AI can really decipher that scope of work, and it doesn't require a specific format. So we said, all right, let's let dealers upload video. Let's let dealers speak it. Let's let dealers copy and paste or type a spec. Give them all of these ways to take a scope of work and put it into the system. And they'll put it in as quickly as possible, and then let our system do all the heavy lifting and the hard work to create the budget, the outline of the project, the scope of work. We can write a great description of what's being done in the project, and eliminate or significantly reduce all of that work and all of the and fix all of the things that you lose when you're doing it, a day or two or three later. And the sort of byproduct of all of that is you turn around proposals in 24 hours if you're like taking your time. So when most customers are used to waiting a couple days, maybe a week or longer from most contractors to get a quote. If a dealer can turn it around in 24 hours, like they're the hero. They set themselves apart that way.
Yeah.
So all of that went into this.
Yeah. You keep the momentum then too, because you haven't lost that energy from that meeting or,
Exactly.
that type of thing. But so all of this went into it, and you've got a finished product in beta at Cedia, where you said you've got people
That's right.
actually able to, try it out, get a demo.
Yeah, we had a fully running beta version at Cedia that we launched. We finished up that week. And once again, I have to give a shout out to our dev team, our technical team. They knocked it out of the park. I mean, design's very important for us. I'm always confident that when we look at a feature and build a new feature, that design's going to get it right. But incorporating that design on the back end and actually building that functionality is incredibly difficult. And we did it on a really short time frame. So just from a world-class team, they did an amazing job getting something up and running for Cedia that was, we were running it through the Cedia internet connection, and we had I think 6 iMacs up and running, and we were it was AI proposal after AI proposal. We ended up setting up all the machines to record dealer reactions because we knew they would be so sort of visceral, and we ended up using those for our post Cedia video, and it worked out great that way.
And you've got a pretty nice video demo that you do on your website as well for folks who haven't actually seen it yet and can kind of you're doing the voice.
We do. I'm looking down here because I can do a demo right now. We should do one right now while I'm talking.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so I'm on my phone. As you can see, I'm on Portal. This is my proposal page, list of proposals. So I'm just going to create a new proposal. And then there's a section in here for AI proposal builder right there. So I click that, and then we actually just added this piece up here, which is Speak It. So you can record right from your device here. If you don't have an audio recording, no problem. It actually records live through the web interface. Or we can type it up, or I can upload a video. So I'll just speak. I'll do a system for Jeremy's house, and I'll just talk into my phone right now. So we'll do, hey, I'm here at Jeremy's house, and he's upgrading his living room TV to a 65-inch Sony, and we're gonna mount that on the wall with the Versa box behind it and a flat mount. And then below that, we're going to do a Sonos Arc, also mounted on the wall, flush up against that TV. So it looks really nice. We'll do a piece of Salamander furniture below that. That's going to house an Apple TV, and we'll have to run that wiring up the wall. And then I'm going to do a Sonos Connect amp that will go in there that will power 2 surround speakers. We're going to do 2 in-ceiling speakers. We'll do some Sonance speakers in the ceiling back by the couch. So we'll need the wiring for that as well. And then we're going to do 2 audio zones we'll do one in the kitchen and one in the dining room. We've got 2 Sonance in-ceiling speakers with, and we'll have to wire them back. They'll each have a Connect amp that'll be in that Salamander furniture. So that's a simple, small project. I forgot your control system, but that's all right. We'll do an add-on later. We'll do a change order for you.
Right.
So it's already uploaded my text, it actually converted the transcript over, and then I just generate the proposal outline and it starts building it. So this is my overall scope of work.
Okay.
This is my room. You see the living room with the description of what's going in the living room. And then everything's broken down by task. And then each task has parts and labor with budgets. So now, this is a pretty small project, so it goes pretty fast.
Okay.
But at the bottom, I've got a financial summary. So if I'm the dealer and I'm with the client and I've just put in this information, I can start talking, hey, this type of project usually costs between $8,000 and $10,000. Is that what you were planning to spend for this? You can start to have that conversation before you even leave the job site.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're ready, it's preparing in the background right now, but when it's ready, you click build proposal, and it actually creates your proposal, creates your rooms, puts all those descriptions in the proposal for you. So you have the complete structure of the proposal built. And then what we do is, here it's ready. We've got the build proposal button. And then what we do is, the anchor of Portal is our catalog, but we created this new idea of placeholders. And what the placeholders are is all of the information that I gave it when I said, Sonos Arc, when I said, the Sony and a certain size TV. The LLM hears all of that, and then we put that in that placeholder line item. So when the dealer goes to replace it with something from the catalog that they want to sell, they can find that really fast because we pre-filter. So we know it's a Sony. We pre-filter by Sony. We know the size. We can add that to the search. So we make it really easy for the dealer to go in and just swap the stuff they want. But honestly, that's just temporary because the next step for us is basically, instead of requiring the dealer to replace those placeholders, we know what they sell based on their proposal history. So the learning piece is going to take hold here pretty soon. It'll learn what the dealer likes to sell or what they've communicated they want to sell in that walkthrough. And it'll just grab that part from the catalog and put that on the proposal. And then if it's, if the dealer wants to do something different or upgrade, they can just swap it out really easily.
And there's no scale issues with size of projects and, houses that are involved in these. You just keep going and going, and it just takes a little longer for it to process. But
it'll take a little longer for the LLM to process because it's got to structure all of that data the way turn it into an actual proposal. We're still really early on. CDO was, oh gosh, I guess it was close to 2 months ago or 2 months ago now.
Yeah.
We've been in beta and we've had a limited release in beta. So, this Tuesday we'll go live in beta for all dealers who want to try it. And so we're still taking that feedback and making tweaks. So this is like the early version of it. But the feedback so far has been pretty incredible.
But as far as like how it's processing, is there a time that you just need to take a pause and let it catch up and do its thing? Or can you just keep going and recording and it's like gonna take it all just indefinitely, like you're walking around a house project?
Yeah, there's no limits to that piece of it. And in fact, I mentioned uploading a video. When we first showed this to some dealers, they decided to do video walkthroughs. And so not necessarily with the customer, but you walk through with the customer and then you say, okay, I'm going to record all of this so I have it for my team.
Yeah.
And then you can upload that video, and it doesn't matter the size of the video. I think there's a video size limit, but it's pretty large. You can also break it into multiple pieces. So if you wanted to upload 3 or 4 pieces of spec content, you can do that. And so what we had guys do was they'd go to the job site, they'd record a full walkthrough of the size and scope of the project. Not only could they use that in the AI proposal builder, but it helps them to make sure that they cover everything on the proposal. Some guys were then taking that video and embedding it on the proposal so the customer could watch it back on the proposal to know, yes, this is what we talked about, and to set their expectations on what they're getting. And then the third thing is it's a great resource because it captures all of the information in detail with a visual representation for your team. So your technicians can watch the video before they ever go out to the job site to make sure they have everything they need to properly execute the install.
Well, that's really great. And that really helps to understand it better. Exciting that it's rolling out now and you're getting experience and hearing feedback and all of that. Any tweaks as far as the experience in the field yet, the things you weren't expecting, or is it all pretty much working as planned?
I mean, pretty much, our process is generally we release an MVP, minimum viable product, which is essentially what you see now, still in beta. And then we take feedback. So we did this on we launched change orders, I think last year. We built it exactly the way we want. We made the most important changes as we got feedback from dealers. And then we basically just took as much feedback as possible. And then we do another round of development a couple months after that, where we just make those improvements. That's how we'll do this as well. So we've got a very clear roadmap of what this first couple phases looks like for this. Okay. Most of the feedback has just, I mean, honestly, most dealers are just using it, and they're not asking for something different necessarily, because I think a lot of that's just because it's still new, and it's new in terms of process for dealers. They've never had something like this. So it's not like, but of course they're still going to come up with the things that they'd like to see. A lot of those things they can actually do already. So it's like, how do I get it to, give me this certain result specifically that I'm expecting that it hasn't yet. And we just help them sort of craft the inputs into the AI in order to get those outputs that they want. So there's some of that. We've released, I think a week or two ago, we updated it so they can use their labor rate instead of the hard-coded labor rate that we use based on industry averages. Okay. So that's out now. And then the automatic item swapping is coming soon. So there's a pretty set list of features that we're developing around this tool as we're also collecting feedback. And then we'll let dealers run with it for a while, and then we'll take all of that feedback and decide what improvements we want to make.
So you mentioned your tier roadmap that you always are working on, and that's simultaneously going on to this development. How did this development change your roadmap with what you were doing prior to having AI as part of your technology? Is it kind of making things all change, or are those changes, those things you're working on down the road, unrelated kind of to this product?
They're mostly unrelated. They are things that we have a special piece of our website that tracks feature requests. And so we have a pretty clear vision on where we want to take, what the future of Portal looks like and what dealers are asking for. That didn't necessarily change. I think mostly it got, some features that we would have liked to do maybe earlier get pushed back a little bit. But what we did do was we invested in more technical resources, and we essentially, over the last 3 months, we've doubled our technical team. Wow. So that we can run multiple teams concurrently in development and turn around these features faster. So we have a pretty clear vision of what we want to do long term and what that 12 to 24 month roadmap looks like. And then we invested in doubling the team so that we can develop even faster than we are now.
Well, that's great. And I think we've covered it very well. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you'd want to touch on before we go? Because I think that kind of gives us a lot to chew on. And folks who haven't tried it out can get excited now, because the podcast is going to hit right around the time when it's open beta for everybody. Right.
No, I mean, I think that's it. I wasn't necessarily hoping for anything specific here. I just wanted to talk about, the tool. I know we dug into my background a little bit, so hopefully that was helpful.
Absolutely. But, and I didn't ask you about the coffee business. So what are you still doing around with that?
So I own a roaster here in the Harrisburg area. It's called Lonely Monk Coffee Roasting. I was a customer for, I want to say, close to 15 years. I got a fresh bag of fresh roasted coffee every 2 weeks. And the pandemic hit, and he called me up and he was like, I think I'm going to retire. It's mostly a hobby business for him, but he honestly roasted the best beans I had anywhere. And I was traveling a lot for Jetson Systems. I was all over the world, actually, and I just couldn't get enough of his coffee. And when he called me in August, or I guess it was June, July of 2020, I was like, I can't let you do that. So I kept him on board. He's still our master roaster. And he comes in and fresh roasts coffee weekly. And we fill those orders. So I've got a great team over there that do a great job running the roasting, and I get fresh roasted amazing coffee every week from it. So it worked out great.
such a cool side business for you, and a passion as well. So, well, Josh, it's been great talking to you as usual, and I'm excited for your dealers to continue to work with the new technology here and learn more about AI proposal builder. So, again, thanks for your time. Great talking to you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Jeremy.
Josh Willits is COO of Portal, and you can learn more about everything we talked about today at portal.com, portal.io. And that wraps up today's show, which was produced by Residential Tech Today, IPW, and Pretty Easy Podcasts. If you're new to Residential Tech Talks, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you watched or listened to this episode. Also, check out all the latest residential tech news at our magazine's website, restechtoday.com, where you can also subscribe to the print or digital magazine and to our Tuesday and Thursday email newsletters. Until next time, please stay safe, stay inspired, and let us know if you have a great story to tell.
Residential Tech Talk. Autonomous lighting specialist to Residential Tech Talk.
Home automation, smart device, home or smart house.